and Spirit Days last week. I know these initiatives were a welcome break from routine and a positive boost to mental and physical well-being of our students and staff. There were also some important occasions on the weekend. Sunday was the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, with this year's focus on youth standing up against racism. This reminded me of just how proud we are of our Student Senate and all Blue Water students and staff who continue to take on many different activities and causes to support equity in our schools. During the pandemic, conversations around the removal of systemic barriers have become even more critical. In our board, there is a lot of dedicated work happening at many levels to ensure equal access and opportunities for all individuals and groups. This extends to those with special needs. With World Down Syndrome Day also recognized this past Sunday, and World Autism Awareness Day coming up on April 2nd, we think about all our students with special education needs and their families. Their unique experiences in managing through the pandemic cannot be understated or overlooked. With this in mind, I would like to dedicate this month's moment of reflection to our most vulnerable learners and those who directly support them. We reflect on their right to an equitable and barrier-free education that helps them to ensure their future success, and our responsibility as a board to uphold this commitment. Which takes us to the approval of our agenda. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of March 23rd, 2021 be approved as printed. Could I have a mover? I see Trustee Morgan and Trustee Dawson. Is there anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda? I see none. All in favor for the agenda as printed? And that is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest for any items on our agenda tonight? Trustee Johnstone, I see your hand up, or is that just not down? Thank you. I see none. So we'll be looking for a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the regular meeting of the board of February 16th, 2021 be approved as printed. Could I have a mover, please? Trustee McComb and a seconder, Trustee Atkinson. Were there any errors or omissions? I see none. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. And that takes us to the approval of the Committee of the Whole Board minutes, March 2nd. Could I have a mover that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 2nd, 2021 be approved as printed? Trustee Johnstone and seconded by Trustee Morgan. Again, is there any errors or omissions? Trustee Atkinson, do you have a concern? Okay. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from the minutes? See none. Which takes us to excellence in education. I am looking for a mover that the Blue Water District School Board receive the Experiential Learning and Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program report for information. Could I have a mover, please? Trustee Johnstone and seconded by Somebody in my +9. Trustee Boyd John, thank you. And welcome, Superintendent Lefebvre.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I am very pleased to be joined today with Dave Barrett, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program Coordinator, or OYAP Coordinator for Blue Water District School Board, and Andrea Rideout, who is our Experiential Learning Lead. They are here to present to you this evening all about what you see within the report, and rather than taking the time up the time reading part of that report, they have an action-packed presentation, and I don't want to take any time away from them. So I'm going to turn it over to them immediately, and I believe that they're on right now, Dave and Andrea, and you're going to share your screen, Dave. Thank you. Over to you. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good evening, trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm from Dave Barrett from the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, or OYAP, and I'd like to introduce my colleague Andrea Rideout, who is the leader of experiential learning. And as Keith said, we have an action-packed presentation for you, so we'll just launch right into it. So what we've been doing over the past pandemic is working with students, trying to find ways, because experiential learning means hands-on, so does most apprenticeship. So we looked at different opportunities to provide students with learning hands-on opportunities. So we've done things like OYAP building a car and racing, Edge Factor, which is an online platform, gingerbread bridge design, secondary cohort in-school challenges, welding simulators, and using those from the SOS trailer, program highlights days, Grizzly Cubs days, and experiential learning projects. So the OYAP Kidder Cars is basically, we purchased 25 kits. They have 35 vehicles in every car, so students would get a vehicle. And we tried to time this. I worked closely with Andrea, and we tried to time this so that it matches in with what the 7s and 8s would be doing in their curriculum, so in math. So each Kidder car came with car body, wheels, everything else. The students could put on their own designs, but it came with the props in order to make a proper vehicle. So they had to cut them out. And then the teachers would use the curriculum where students would have to hypothesize, what will happen if, and what do I think? And then they would calculate things like top speed, acceleration, distance, using all the different tools that they had at hand to do this. So it was an opportunity for them to build vehicles, see how they did, how the cars did going forward, how the cars did going backwards, and use those calculations to show off their skills. So just a quick video to show one student's car. You can see the yardstick or meter stick on the floor. They were using it, timing it, students were watching, and then that car was brought back, it was wound up again, and then sent backwards to see what would happen. And it did go backwards. The other thing we did was when the pandemic hit and the first lockdown occurred, I've been looking at a platform called Edge Factor for a number of years. We've just never been able to make it work or afford it. But this was a perfect opportunity to show students the opportunities in the skilled trades, but not just the skilled trades, STEM careers, which I constantly talk to students about. Is STEM, skilled trades is where STEM is implemented. Science is needed in skilled trades. You use the latest technology, you have to read engineers' plans, and you're constantly doing math. But they expanded this platform to include soft skills, financial literacy, virtual workplace experience, just a phenomenal platform. So we purchased this platform for all of our elementary schools that have grade 6 and above, and all of our secondary schools. And they've aligned this to the Ontario curriculum. So it's a great tool for students who are working at home, but also students that are working in school. Teachers have the ability to go in, assign assignments. Their videos are not just the boring, hi, I'm Dave from OYAP, follow me and I'll show you what I do for a day. They're action-packed, they're very informative, and they're very, very engaging. So we engage with that platform to give students, and as I said, they've expanded to keep up with the Ontario curriculum. So teachers can go in and log in, and there's some great financial literacy projects that students can do that align beautifully with the Ontario curriculum.
That's great. Thanks, Dave, and thanks everybody for this opportunity to be with you this evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about our gingerbread bridge design and build and weight challenge. So just before Christmas, our winter break, we invited 6 classes to partner with us to participate in a pilot project which incorporated STEM and skilled trades. So one of our goals for OEAP and experiential learning this year is that we're aiming to reach down more into our elementary classrooms. So as a result, this cross-panel pilot project involved grade 4s and 5s at Northport and grade 7 and 8 students at Ripley Huron Community School, as well as GC Houston. So to make a solid connection between the challenge and the skilled trades, students took part in a virtual presentation from Skills Ontario, which introduced the skilled trades and also set a foundation for our gingerbread challenge, which highlighted construction and baking skilled trades. So as this was a pilot project, it was important for us to hear the students' voice on the project. Students shared their feedback around the Skills Ontario presentation on an exit ticket after the pilot project was completed. And here's what they had to say in their own words about what they learned about the skilled trades. It's encouraging that students notice that the skilled trades aren't just for males, and that this is a mindset that we really want to encourage at an early age and provide examples of strong, confident, successful women who are highly skilled in their trade. It was also evident from student comments that the message is getting through to students at an early age that apprenticeship is a first choice pathway, and it's respectable, it's lucrative, and it provides an excellent education. Students were then challenged to design and create a bridge with certain length and height specifications using gingerbread and icing. And while students had these specifications, of course, they were also encouraged to channel their creativity in design and decorating. And special thanks to our very generous support from our OEAP coordinator, Dave Barrett. Students were provided with their very own individual gingerbread house building kit to make their creation. And this was great because it enabled students to create their own unique design, but it also met with current COVID guidelines. So students were required to document their design, progress, and final weight that their bridge could hold. It was really interesting to see how some students chose to use non-standard units of measurement, as you can see by the stack of math textbooks that were used. So there's a challenge. Where there's a challenge, there's usually prizes, and this one certainly didn't disappoint. Prizes were provided by Dave, who has the very best swag, and they included water bottles, measuring tapes, and screwdriver sets. And I can firmly attest that the students were over the moon happy with these prizes. So we provided prizes for best decor, strongest bridge, and best design. Pictures were submitted via email to OEAP, and judging took place by our 7-8 math literacy coach, Peggy Sue Fox, and myself. And I think we enjoyed reviewing the students' results just as much as the students enjoyed making their creations. Next up is a picture from Serenity from GC Houston, who documented she clearly met the challenge criteria. We absolutely loved her clear design plan that she sketched on graph paper, and also included pictures to show all the measurements for her bridge. And Serenity chose to create a video to demonstrate her total weight that her bridge could hold, which was really, really neat. And that's a pretty strong bridge. Perfect. And while we wanted to gather feedback from our students on their takeaways from this project, we also wanted to hear what the teachers had to say. So it was really great to hear that teachers felt this was a meaningful activity for their students with curriculum connections in math, science, language, and art. And Dana at GC Houston said this was a natural integration for her into her math program, specifically her ratio unit. And she made a nice connection into reading blueprints as well. The other really great thing was that not only did this activity meet several curriculum expectations, Many teachers commented that given our current COVID situation, the hands-on activity met the guidelines that are needed to be followed around COVID-19, but it also provided a boost to students' mental health and provided some much needed fun before the winter break. So that was really great to hear as well. On their exit tickets, students were asked a simple question of what did you learn from this challenge? And their feedback fell into 3 categories. And again, these are direct quotes from students. So you can see some students really highlighted and made connections to the chef side of the challenge. And who knows, perhaps we've sparked an interest. We may have a few more future chefs in the making as a result. Students also noted that there was a lot of construction and design related feedback. They highlighted the importance of a good plan, a solid foundation, and the importance of using your imagination. And who knows, maybe we have our next graphic artists or carpenters. And then there were the students that their takeaway was more about the soft skills that are important and needed for this task, but of course carry on throughout life. So again, these statements are direct quotes from our students. And these are not our lessons that are directly taught to students. They're uncovered while students are authentically engaged in their task and truly take time to reflect on their learning.
Something that we did at the secondary level. Is that me? Can you mute, Andrea? Something we did at the secondary level that we found worked really well is normally Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program would run our regional skills competition. However, COVID-19 prevented that from happening last year and prevented us from even planning it this year. So what we proposed was to run in-cohort skills challenges for grade 11 and 12 students in whatever quadmester that they were in. So Grey Highlands took up the challenge and ran an automotive in-cohort skills challenge at the end of quadmester 1. The teacher got so excited she forgot to take pictures, but she sent some very nice comments about it. We've also approved a carpentry challenge at Bruce Peninsula District School that will happen at the end of quadmester 3. And as quadmester 4 is the normal regional skills time, we are already starting to hear from schools who plan to take advantage of this opportunity for the end of quadmester 4. Something else that we've done is lent out the welding simulators from the SOS trailer. And we lent it out to JDSS as our first pilot. They used it with DL students, grade 7s and 8s, to get them passionate about possibly getting into technology. And then we've been lending it out to other schools. And some of them are doing welding challenges, different things, just to engage students and give them a hands-on opportunity. Because these things, all you have to do is wipe down the handle for the next person to use, and they're following all the COVID protocols, and it's very safe. They don't need the mask or anything like that.
Dave, we're not quite able to hear him. Could you just tell us a little bit about what he's saying?
Wasn't sure if that came through because it did on the practice run. So basically the highest end welding simulator that is available, thanks to a partnership with the Canadian Welding Bureau, UA Canada, and Bruce Power and OYAP, they've donated the highest end welding simulator to Ontario Owen Sound District Secondary School. So that was Mr. Klunder. He's over the moon. He's very excited about this. They've already started using it in their school. And it's very interesting. You can put the helmet on and you can pick a scenario. So when you lift up and look around, you can actually see a workshop around you. You could be up on a skyscraper. And then as you focus in, you do your welding, no different than as if you were in the real world. And it's a great opportunity for students. And what Mr. Klunder is going to track for us is how much his consumables go down, because students will learn to weld on the simulator in real world scenarios before they even enter the welding booth. And we're hoping that cuts down on his metal costs, gas costs, wire costs, and electricity costs.
Alrighty, this fall we sent out our numbered memo for teachers kindergarten to grade 12 to submit experiential learning project proposals and acquire additional funding. While areas such as STEM and skilled trades were certainly encouraged, we allowed for teachers to submit for whatever subject area they had an interest in and felt passionate about, and perhaps what they were focusing on in their classroom. So along with our system curriculum lead, Crystal Dove, we hosted an information session for teachers who were interested in submitting a proposal, and the response was really positive, and we received several application requests. So we approved 12 projects in total, and they as well span from kindergarten to grade 12, and they explore a variety of topics as listed on the slide. So our projects are underway, and we'll be having a midpoint check-in just next month. Thanks, Steve. So Blue Water District School Board continues to develop its working relationship with School College Work Initiative, or SCWI, in partnership with Georgian College, who instructs, and SCWI funds our dual credit program, along with other programs throughout the year. And despite our unique year, our Central Lakes Regional Planning Team, which we are a part of, has been able to plan and facilitate experiential learning activities across elementary and secondary panels. So in December, OSDSS students in a grade 12 business course had the pleasure of taking part in a virtual program highlights day, which is made possible by SCWI and hosted by Georgian College staff and faculty. The purpose of this event is for grade 12 students to learn more about their pathway options and various opportunities that are available to them. And while all pathway options are presented, the focus, of course, is on the college pathway, and specific programs are highlighted. Students are encouraged to keep an open mind and explore to find a pathway that best suits their needs. And of course, we're hoping that it sparks a passion as well. So usually Program Highlights Day takes place at Georgian College on the Barrie campus, and students generally travel there for the day and visit different departments for a tour and an activity. And while the magic of being on a campus cannot be captured online, this event still did an excellent job highlighting the college pathways for our students. So it was an all-day event hosted by Georgian College event coordinator, and students were led through each session. So the provided specific examples of their pathways and shared their enthusiasm for their various programs. And I also should mention that prior to these sessions, kits were mailed to the school ahead of time, which gave the opportunity for students to take part in hands-on activities for each session. So students mixed solutions for biotechnology, they experimented with color and design, they created a business pitch, and they also made their very own phone kickstand in cabinet making, which was a really big hit, as you can imagine. So here are several of our students taking part in their hands-on activities at each session, and they commented that they really enjoyed the day and it made them think differently about specific programs. I just think it's really interesting that the bottom right picture on this slide is actually of the classroom teacher, Sarah Boyd, and she took part in every single session. It was amazing. This is her creating her own flag in the design and visual arts. And it was really neat that the students were actually watching her take part in it as well. And she, of course, is an outstanding example to her students. Grizzly Cubs is another activity that generally takes place on Georgian College campus, but also made the pivot to virtual event this year. The positive thing about this pivot is that usually we're only able to have 2 classes participate, and this year, because it was an online platform, we had 10 intermediate, so that's grade 7 and 8 classes, take part in Grizzly Cubs online. So teachers are provided with a pre-recorded video for their students, which highlights the college pathway. And having the teacher and student watch this video ahead of time before the question and answer allows for the teacher and the students to really digest the material and formulate rich discussions for the follow-up session. So teachers have the opportunity after the session the question and answer session, to follow up with an innovation challenge, which involves a series of videos that leads the class through brainstorming sessions on a specific social problem and how to solve that. So for those of you who are familiar with our specialized high school major programs, this process is very similar to the innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, or the ICE process used in that program. And this is a picture of one of our classes taking part. And here we have an example of the innovation challenge, which provides structure and suggestions on how to brainstorm effectively and to move towards solving the social problem. It has really strong curriculum ties, and teachers are able to incorporate this challenge into their language arts, science, and geography programs, thus making it a meaningful learning activity, which is great.
Thank you so much to the two of you. As I'm sure you can tell, Andrea and Dave are so passionate about what they do, and their creativity and innovation knows no bounds. So they've done some wonderful things this year. I love how they've been really innovative in being able to shift and pivot to being online and making things work for our students in Blue Water. I know you probably have some questions, so I'm going to turn it back to Chair Thompson if you want to field some questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I am always so inspired when I hear about your work and the projects that are ongoing. I love to hear about it. Do trustees have any questions? I see Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I'd like to echo Keith's comments. Thanks for this presentation. It was very enlightening. I enjoyed every aspect of it. My question is, are there elements of these activities that we saw will be able to go forward next year and for other years as we can move out of this pandemic situation? Thank you.
So yes, our goal is to do them live. And we're always monitoring through the COVID protocols. So any chance we can get a kid into hands-on activities, that's what we're going to do. So Andre and I are constantly working together. I know we drive poor Keith nuts because we're out, can we do this? What about that? You know, and he has to say no, and we understand that, but we just pivot and say, well, what about this? And then we get to a space to give students the chance. And some of the online stuff we'll probably keep and use it to augment the hands-on activities that we've got planned for. We're already starting for 21, 22. So we're already talking about that.
And it's really neat. Dave and I usually debrief afterwards as well and take the feedback from everybody and kind of think, okay, how can we, tweak for next year? Like he said, our SCWI activities are ongoing activities. And at the beginning of the year, we were quite concerned that we weren't going to be able to proceed with those. So it's great we've been able to do that and to pivot to online, and crossing our fingers that we're in person for next year.
Thank you.
Trustees have any other questions? I have one for you. The pilot project that the 6 classes were chosen for, is there an opportunity for that to be expanded more broadly to other students to participate in the Gingerbread Challenge or any of the other programs?
Absolutely, yes. So that's why we pilot it. Keep it small, make all of our mistakes with it. There were definitely some glitches along the way. We learned from those, and now we're ready to roll it out to a bigger audience. And as I said, Andre and I are already talking about, the rest of this year, as well as what can we do in 21, 22.
And David, can you explain, is the funding that you depend on based on our board budget, or does it come from other sources?
So the budget that the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program sends is from a different ministry. It's from the Ministry of Labour, Training and Skills Development. And it's actually based on the work that we do within the board. So because we produce numbers similar to city boards, our budget continues to grow. We have students, we're doing a good job of encouraging students to explore skilled trades. That's all our goal is. go out and explore them through co-op. So that's the big measurement for me. And then the next one that the ministry looks for is how many of our students are becoming apprentices, and that number keeps growing. And then how many young women are exploring the skilled trades and becoming apprentices, and that number's growing locally. So all of those things combined. So I get giddy every year because I'm going, okay, how much of an increase are we going to get? And it's going up because of the work of Andrea, our teachers, our tech teachers, our guidance folks, our co-op teachers. We work as a team, and that's why it's happening.
Thank you. I see student trustee Wall has a question.
You mentioned that more young women are getting interested in the trades. I was wondering if you had any sense of how much that changes.
So on a provincial level, we know that 8 years ago when I took this position, it was right around 4%. Provincially, that's gone up to 5.9%. And locally, it's just under 20% of all apprentices in Grey Bruce are women. We still think that's too low, and we want to see it grow provincially as well.
That's still an excellent jump. Thank you for answering that.
Happy to help.
Are there any other questions from the trustees? I just want to say, Mr. Barrett, I'm glad that you're just in your 30s and you won't be retiring anytime soon. I think you bring so much to our program, and Andrea, it's great that you're part of it to help out. It's very exciting to hear what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was moved by Trustee Johnstone and seconded by Trustee Boyd John that the Blue Waters District School Board receive the Experiential Learning in Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program report for information. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. And thank you very much for your report. It was excellent. We have no delegations this evening. And so our reports, the committee reports of the Committee of the Whole Board reports. I will speak to this report, and there are two recommendations coming out of the Committee of the Whole Board report. The first is, I'll be moving it that the Blue Water District School Board approve the Bruce Peninsula District School students participate in the Specialist High Skills Major SHISM Spring Hike Grade 10 Outers, May 12th, 13th, and 14th, 2021, contingent that it aligns with COVID-19 protocols at the time of departure. I see Trustee Boyd John as a seconder, and all in favor? Thank you. That is carried. And the second recommendation, moved by myself, that the Blue Water District School Board approve that Grey Highlands Secondary School students participate in the Environmental Studies Program, ESP, field trips, Bells Lake Canoe Trip, April 27th and April 28th, 2021, Flesherton Hills Pond Canoe Trip, practice, April 29th, 2021, Saugeen River Canoe Trip, May 27th, 2021. Eugenia Lake Canoe Trip, June 9th, 2021. Beaver River Canoe Trip, June 11th, 2021. Contingent that it aligns with the COVID-19 protocols at the time of departure. Can I have a seconder? Trustee Dawson, and all in favor? Thank you, and that is carried. And I would like to invite Trustee Dawson to speak to the Business Committee of the Whole Board report. And there's one recommendation coming out of that report, which we'll put on the floor when you're finished your report, if that's okay, Trustee Dawson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Thompson. Just give me a second to call the report up in front of me here. The Business Committee met on March 2nd, and we received several reports, and there was one item for decision, which you referred to. Several items of information came forward. There was a COVID-19 update for 2021, And we also received a capital priorities update. And we also received a report detailing the funding allocations associated with trustees' expenditures and honorarium. There was a report regarding the new kindergarten district senior school potential sites, and we received an update on the Georgian Bay Community School update with some pictures showing how that project's coming along. And we also received a report on the Beavercrest Community School update. So that is my report. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And the one motion that was coming out, I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder that the Blue Water District School Board approve the list of schools with available unused space that could be made available for appropriate community partnerships. It's moved by Trustee Dawson and a seconder, Trustee Atkinson. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. There was no committee of the whole in-camera meeting held today. So no report. So this brings us to our notice of motion. The following notice of motion was introduced by Vice Chair Johnstone at the February 16th meeting of the board for discussion and consideration at this meeting. And I will read the notice of motion. I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder. Whereas 80 to 90% of low-income workers across Canada have no access to paid sick leave, and whereas these precariously employed and casual workers must stop work and forego pay in order to quarantine or self-isolate, and whereas the Association of Local Public Health Agencies, ALPHA, which represents 34 public health units, including Grey Bruce Health Unit, their medical leaders, and each area's Board of Health has written to the Premier saying messaging and encouragement to self-isolate when sick are not enough to stand the pandemic. And whereas ALPHA has written to the Premier to reinstate guaranteed paid sick leave to ensure that workers do not have to choose between their livelihoods and the following public health directives. Be it resolved. Could I have a mover? And then we'll put the motion on the floor. I have Trustee Atkinson and a seconder. Trustee Johnstone, and I'll read the motion. That the chair, on behalf of Blue Water District School Board, write to the Provincial Minister of Labour, Training and Skills Development, Minister of Health, and the Minister of Education to ask the Government of Ontario to require employers in Ontario to provide no less than 5 paid sick days annually to workers after 3 months of employment through amendments to the Employment Standards Act 2000 or through a different mechanism, provide necessary funding, fiscal relief, and/or supports to employers so that all workers in Ontario have access to no less than 10 paid sick days annually as a public health measure to prevent transmission of communicable diseases, including in the event of a declared infectious disease emergency, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, and ensure all workers in Ontario have access to protected and paid emergency leave so that care can be provided to children, parents, or other family members who may become ill. Just so trustees who are participating for the first time, everyone will have an opportunity to speak to this motion twice, but we'll make sure everyone speaks one time before we go through the second time. And Trustee Johnston will have the opportunity to speak last. So I will ask if anybody has anything they would like to say. And Trustee Johnstone, I see your hand is there.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Thompson. So The reason why I brought this motion forward and it had to do with is really to do with when all the public health agencies across Ontario actually supported and wrote the premier to say that asking people to stay home and quarantine if they thought they were sick wasn't enough. We talk about people, our frontline heroes, and often, the essential workers, and often it is those people who are working in our grocery stores, where we were, say, cocooned at home, if we were, so lucky that they were, considered basically essential workers. That often it is those people who are working, say, in grocery stores or in Quickie Marts or various, you could say, jobs that are precariously employed and we consider low income, have no access to any kind of sick leave benefits. And that I was also really surprised, and I have to say this to do with just say our own public health agency, because when I looked at who sits on, the board of the, our Grey Bruce Health unit, is that it is really a wide political spectrum. So you have the mayor who is from, for example, the Huron Kinloss, which I know it has more of what we would consider conservative persuasions, right to Ann E., my mayor, who you would consider more progressive. I was, so it's not what I call it, it's an issue to do with wanting to represent the people in our communities. And often those people in our communities have children in our schools. And what's going on is that they are going to work sick, or they might feel unwell, but because they don't have access to sick days, they're going to work sick, and it's really about not putting, stopping the transmission of COVID and all its variants. I know that the Toronto District School Board passed a motion like this, and I can tell you that that it was supported by all their trustees. I also know that there has been similar, call outs to the premier, whether it's from public health and nursing associations, but also the mayor of Toronto, the mayor of Brampton. So there has been a groundswell that's been going on. I guess I have, I'm really thinking about our families. That if it's particular, if they're precariously employed or have low, have no access to sick days, that they might be going to work sick. And I want everybody in our communities to remain safe. Now, I'm going to say that there is a Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, but it is also it considered very slow, and it doesn't even provide, it's below minimum wage, and people have to wait. If you're precariously employed or a minimum wage frontline worker, who's living within like $200 away from, that, in their bank account, then having to wait for that money. So people are making the decision to go to work sick. I think that the other thing about the Canadian part is that it also, if just say, at the end of the week you felt unwell, but you don't get a couple of days here and a couple of days there. It has to be within 1 week. And so people are still, it's just not a good program. And so that's why I'm putting it on the floor. I believe that there is money, provincially, that they've had federally, that first of all, they could provide those days and also compensate the employer. And that's what I have to say about that. So I'm really looking at our families, in Grey Bruce, and wanting to support our health unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Johnstone. I see Trustee Lutz. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think this is really noble, and it's really important to support sick time for employees. I also want to hazard against suggesting that this one thing will drastically change the spread of communicable diseases in society, because it's important to note that there have been workplaces with widespread outbreaks that have very generous sick leave policies. It is also important to note that the workplace that shall not be named that was just ordered to shut down for 14 days had numerous COVID-related workplace violations on record, so they were not a safe working environment. So it wasn't just about sick time. It is also important to note that in Canada, we have a deeply ingrained culture to go to work when you are sick, whether you're paid or not. I myself have gone to work sick long before COVID. I hope I won't do that going forward, but that is something I am sure every person in this meeting has done because we thought it was what we should do. And furthermore, we also need to remember that COVID is like the chicken pox. It spreads before we have any symptoms. You are shedding disease before there are symptoms. So even with sick days, you will be sharing it with your coworkers. If you are within the 6 feet, if you aren't masked, and all those things, that it is a robust set of policies that are necessary. I know for my teeny tiny business that operates, just a little over 2 months of the year, our COVID safety plan was over 11 pages long. And every single day we had to make sure each thing on those 11 pages was enforced and in place. And part of that plan was sick time. And so I acknowledge sick time is important, but we need to be careful about suggesting that it is the one thing that will, save us all from future pandemic. Anyways, thanks for letting me say my piece.
Thank you, Trustee Lutz. I see Trustee Morgan.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I just, through the chair, I have a few questions. The one thing that sort of concerns me is the fact that we quoted Toronto and Brampton as people who have supported a similar motion. But their statistics were off the scale compared to Grey County's numbers. So that's one thing, and I can see that there's a real issue there. The other thing that really concerns me is that many of the businesses in Grey Bruce are small family-owned businesses. They are struggling terribly at the moment because of COVID, and to put an onus of paying sick leave on top of them at this point would probably put the businesses under. I realize that Trustee Johnstone said that the money would be supplied back from the government. However, I worked with the government on many occasions, doing retrofits on Coast Guard boats and so on. And I know that they are notorious for paying late and taking a long time to pay. And I can't see that a small business in this climate could possibly survive waiting for 3 months and or up to 6 months for repayment. Thank you, Chair Johnston, Chair Thompson. That's my comments for the evening.
I see Trustee Johnstone has some comments, but I'm going to go to the other trustees if anyone else has comment before I go to Trustee Johnstone. Trustee Boyd-John?
I think that the idea of paid sick days for minimum wage workers in precarious labor is an excellent idea. However, I agree with Trustee Morgan, and I feel that it is outside the responsibility of the school board to be voting on it, and it's a very complicated issue that should be left for the higher powers that be. I think in our area it's especially complicated, and I can't speak for my constituents on this issue. Thanks.
So I see Trustee Lutz is back on the list, and I know Trustee Johnstone. Is there anyone that has not yet had an opportunity to speak that would like to have an opportunity? I see Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I agree with what Trustee Boyd-John had said, and just concerned that this issue is not one that is a purview of school boards per se. I understand the situation involving families that are caught in this situation, and also small businesses certainly are suffering, but I'm just thinking that this notice of motion is not something that really is within the purview and scope of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that we have not yet heard from Marilyn or Trustee McComb or Trustee Atkinson. Would you like to speak, or will we go to one of the other people again for their second time? Trustee Atkinson?
I just want to comment. What I was wanting to say has been said already. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee McComb?
Yes, go to the other speakers. I'm hearing two different points of view here, which is very interesting.
Okay, thank you. So, Trustee Johnstone, I'm assuming you would like to speak last. So if it's all right with you, I'll go with Trustee Lutz.
Thanks. I just have a point of, I'll say, formality, and I don't know, like a technicality. I'm getting confused. I apologize, but I realize this isn't a specific thing, so I don't know if it matters, and I'm going to need some help with this. But given that I own a small business, does this fall into pecuniary interest for me to vote on? Like, am I allowed to vote on this? Is it wrong for me to vote on it? I'm getting confused as we talk about it, and could use a bit of guidance if anyone could help me out. Thanks.
Who could help Trustee Lutz out with that the best?
I would say that you're okay to vote, Trustee Lutz.
That would be Bev that said that, correct?
That's right.
And if you really feel you're not, that's okay also. You can just choose not to. And Trustee Johnstone, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I appreciated what Trustee Morgan has stated, and around the small business part, because that was also why I wanted to make sure that small business, small businesses were reimbursed. And because I recognize how precarious it has been during this pandemic. And I know that even though we are in Great Bruce and we haven't had high COVID counts, I'm noticing the numbers are greatly starting to increase again, and that has to do with the various kinds of variants. Although I mentioned Peel and Toronto areas, I do know, as I said, 34 public health units across Ontario unanimously, and not only the directors, but their boards unanimously supported. And it wasn't through a motion, but it was, I guess it probably would be like a motion, Trustee Morgan, but they said that the idea about staying at home, like the things that we're saying to people, they said that the best thing would be is if people could stay home and feel that they could, especially if they were sick, and not feel that they were forced to go to work when they were feeling unwell. Although you may suggest that this isn't a school board issue, to me, it really is an issue because we represent communities. And in our communities, we have many people who are our parents, who are in these situations. And so really it has nothing to, it's not about that. It's about advocacy. It's really, once again, and we're advocating on behalf of our communities. And I know that I have talked to various parents who said that this would be a really great thing. It's not going to cost us anything, but it says that we care about our community. And so I'm hoping that at least there would be consideration. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Johnstone. Some of the people have not spoken twice to this. Is there anyone else that needs to add anything, or does everyone feel like they've said what they needed to? It looks like everyone is feeling they've said. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the motion back on the floor. I'm just going to say I do intend to vote also. So we'll put the motion on the floor and we'll have a vote. That the chair, on behalf of Blue Water District School Board, write to the provincial minister. It was moved by Trustee Atkinson and seconded by Trustee Johnstone. Minister of Labour, Training and Skills Development, Minister of Health and Minister of Education to ask the Government of Ontario to 1, require employers in Ontario to provide no less than 5 paid sick days annually to workers after 3 months of employment through amendments to the Employment Standards Act 2000 or through a different mechanism. 2, provide necessary funding, fiscal relief, and/or supports to employers so that all workers in Ontario have access to no less than 10 paid sick days annually as a public health measure to prevent transmission of communicable diseases, including in the event of a declared infectious disease, emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic, and 3, ensure all workers in Ontario have access to protected and paid emergency leave so that care can be provided to children, parents, and/or family members who may become ill. So all in favor? I'm seeing Trustee Johnstone and Trustee Lutz. Am I missing anyone? All opposed? And that has, I don't know what the right terminology is, but that has not passed. Thank you very much, everyone. There are no committee establishments or appointments this evening. And reports for information, I would like to invite student trustee Wall to present the Student Senate report, please.
Hello. All right. The Student Senate has been hard at work these past few weeks. Our main focus has been overseeing and facilitating the elections of next year's student senators, and ensuring that each student representative has been chosen by their peers in a fair and equitable manner, while still following COVID-19 safety protocols. This means that instead of ballots, paper ballots, online forms have proven very helpful and convenient. And actually, it was a pleasant surprise to see that student engagement in the Senate. So the number of people who put in their name interested in being student senator, that's about the same as past years, or in some cases even above, which when you consider all of the increased stress and difficulty that is happening in this year, that's something that's really good to see, is that isn't dipping down. And we're very glad to see more students interested in representation and education. Now that elections have been held and we have found next year's senators, we are making efforts to ease the transition between senates. This was something that we recognized as an issue when we began our term, mostly due to some technical problems, but also the sudden impact of COVID-19 and all of the new issues that had to be solved. I mean, but we're trying to ensure that this next Senate can have a smooth and easy beginning to their work. So to this end, we have put together some frequently asked questions and an infographic made by Senator Lily Hawko. Just some, common causes of stress, common causes of anxiety, just to make sure that next year's senators get off on the right foot. And we hope that this can prove useful in the future as well. This isn't a one-time thing specific to this year. This is something that we will add to the folder and become, just another tool for next year's Senate to use, and after that, and after that. In addition, to avoid some of the technical problems that happened last year when the majority of the Senate graduated, and so a lot of files were lost, we are moving everything digital that we can onto a Microsoft Teams, and the hope is that too can continue on through the Senate, from Senate to Senate, so that no information is lost. So that is that, and we had our orientation meeting earlier today, which I think went very well. The Senate took note of the struggles students have faced with inclement weather. We got a couple, hopefully it's all resolved now, and I'm hoping that the spring we are getting is the actual spring. But we received a couple of just worries about the increased stress that happens when you miss a day or 3 days in the same week, as it turned out with the quadmester system. Unfortunately, despite all the efforts made, there's always going to be a challenge when you're switching to online school for a day. That being said, it's been absolutely essential to reduce the impact that these days have in education in the quadmester system, and that is all.
Thank you very much, student trustee Wall. Do trustees have any questions? I have one for you. I have missed seeing our student senate in person, and I think it's trickier if I'm following it for them to participate with us virtually. Are they feeling as connected as they would like, or is there a gap there for them also?
So we have had some technical problems getting everybody onto the Senate. I do my best to make sure that everybody is informed, and there are also some people who just are not able to make it to these online meetings. I would say for the most part, Trustee Thompson. Things are all right. It could be better when it comes to engagement, absolutely. But for the most part, I think everybody is engaged and working as hard as they would like to. Understanding there is something that is lost when you don't get that room full of faces and that in-person connectivity.
Thank you. And I know a lot of your work happens outside of our vision. You meet on your own, and that's where a lot of the work that you move forward. So that's why my question, I was hoping that everyone was feeling engaged in that. And seeing no other questions, thank you very much for your work report. Our next item on the agenda is staff reports. And I would like to invite Superintendent of Education Lauren Penner-Lipset to speak to this. I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder that Blue Water District School Board received the school update report for information. Could I have a mover, please? I see Trustee McComb and Trustee Morgan.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, thank you so much, Chair Thompson. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us this evening. And I'm here to introduce you to a couple of my colleagues that are going to help support the presentation of this report. We're very pleased to bring this to you. There have been, which you'll see when we get into the PowerPoint presentation, there have been some really generous donations to our schools, acts of kindness, and just a really giving spirit in our community that we wanted to be able to highlight for you all tonight. By no means is this list exhaustive, but we did try to capture a broad sample of what's been happening in the district. So I am going to introduce you to Wendy Lowers, Learning Services Administrator, to present the report and the PowerPoint. And we're also going to be joined at the end of the PowerPoint by Principal Matt Pickett from Bruce Peninsula District School to share about a particularly exciting project at his school. Thank you. I think Wendy's going to try to share her screen with us here.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Wendy.
I hope everyone can see that okay. Lauren, if you can maybe just give me a thumbs up if that's everyone can see it.
Yes, I can see it. Thanks.
Okay, great. So it's lovely to be here. Whoop.
Uh-oh, did we lose you, Wendy?
Well, Wendy told me that she wanted me to come on with her, but I don't know what I do if she loses her report. So she'll probably log back in.
Good evening, Mr. Pickett. We'll give Wendy maybe just a moment. I'm wondering if her connection dropped. It just seems she just disappeared.
Mr. Pickett froze.
Are you able to start, Lauren?
Oh, sorry about that. All of a sudden, my computer just went on me. My apologies. We'll try again. Okay, hopefully everything will work for us now properly. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight. And once again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think we're all becoming familiar with those now. As Lauren said, we have had tremendous amounts of generosity in our community to our schools and our students. And so it is my great pleasure tonight to share some of those acts of generosity with you. So the first one I'm going to share with you is at Grey Highlands Secondary School. Grey Highlands Secondary School received a donation from the Ford Motor Company of over 100 pieces of equipment for their auto shop. This donation included transmissions, power steering racks, and all kinds of motors, as well as many other items. The donation was delivered on 14 skids, which you can see the students sitting on here. And automotive teacher Rachel Banks she connected with Ford Motor Company to negotiate this donation. Hillcrest Central School in Teeswater has run a reading resource program, for students for several years with positive results. So the learning resource teacher, Lisa Jameson, and principal, Stephanie Bouchard, applied for funding to support students in kindergarten to grade 8 in building the foundational skills they need to read fluently. The South Bruce Community Liaison Committee and the Nuclear Waste Management Organization provided $3,000 in funding support for the purchase of decodable educational resources, so mostly reading resources, as well as teacher workbooks to guide reading instruction. Elephant Thoughts is a charitable organization that provides hands-on science and math-based experiences in classrooms, often in different classrooms throughout Blue Water. They donated a virtual coding workshop for Hillcrest Central students in Teeswater for students in grades 1 to 8. Students worked with an online presenter and they completed hands-on learning activities connected to math, science, and using technology not normally available in their school. The CWB, which is the Canadian Welding Bureau, Welding Foundation, Bruce Power, and United Auto Workers Canada are working with Blue Water schools to modernize the welding facilities at Owen Sound District Secondary School, Walkerton District Community School, Kincardine District Senior School, John Diefenbaker Senior School, and Saugeen District Senior Schools. Schools are provided with welding materials for projects as well as PPE for safety. Some schools received industry-grade welding machines, as you can see here. The United Auto Workers Canada and their Local 527 are providing trainers for a 30-hour training program that students are also able to attend virtually. This collaboration will provide students an opportunity to explore jobs in the welding trade, develop the skilled welders required to fulfill Bruce and Grey County's future workforce needs, and welding students will have the opportunity to get hands-on experience and potentially enter an apprenticeship with a specialized welding industry qualification upon graduation from secondary school. This collaboration represents a total investment of more than $270,000. Kincardine and District Lions Club made a generous financial donation to help students cope with the demands and restrictions imposed by COVID-19 pandemic, and to purchase play equipment to encourage the children to be outdoors and enjoying themselves being physically active. Kincardine Tiverton Township Public School purchased shovels, rakes, gardening tools, kid-size wheelbarrows, and an assortment of outdoor play equipment that the students are loving. Ecole Elgin Market Public School used their $1,000 from the Lions Club to purchase yard equipment for the students, including a giant Connect 4, dominoes for the kindergarten park, soccer balls, yard balls, and hockey nets and shovels for the snow. And the Lions Club donation to Huron Heights went towards purchasing nutrition break equipment. And in this picture, you can see the equipment crew at Huron Heights busy sorting and labeling the new equipment, so it will be ready in the spring for all the Lightning Hawks to use. The Canadian Tire Jumpstart Charities through Mowbray's Canadian Tire Port Elgin have donated approximately $3,000 worth of ski and snowshoe equipment to Saugeen District Senior School. The school now has 2 full class sets of snowshoes that can be used by students in grades 7 to 12. And here we see the students out in some of their gym classes enjoying a nice activity they can participate in during COVID times. St. Vincent Euphrasia Elementary School have appreciated the support of Dave Lamb from Grandma Lamb's in Meaford. And in an effort to continue to provide nutritious snacks to students, Dave donated smaller than kid-size apples, to the nutrition program for free during the fall apple season. The Power Workers Union Equity Committee, the Bruce site, donated $3,000 to Holland Chatsworth Central School Community Council toward their primary playground fundraising initiative. And this is a case of a gift that keeps on giving. So Ronnie Miller of Port Elgin purchased 6 3D printers at the beginning of COVID lockdown to produce ear savers. So ear savers are those small plastic straps that prevent bruising behind the ears from wearing masks for prolonged periods of time. Miller produced over 20,000 ear savers for local hospitals, schools, and frontline workers using these printers. The ear savers were also sent to other provinces and into the United States. For his work, he received a Community Volunteer Award from the Power Workers Union in appreciation of his contributions. But wanting to continue the giving and being finished with the printers now, Miller donated the printers to Saugeen District, École Elgin Saugeen, and the Launchpad in Hanover. So the donation of these 3D printers will help to prepare our students to experience a technology that they may not have a chance to use otherwise, but it's also a very new technology as well. The Rotary Club of Southampton continues their support, pardon me, in donating backpacks for the students of GC Houston, and they also provide awards for students graduating from Saugeen District Senior School and from GC Houston. Bruce Power provided a donation of personal protective equipment to schools across Blue Water District School Board, as well as our co-terminus board and schools in Huron County. This donation of 70,000 masks, 5,000 liters of hand sanitizer, face protection, and disinfectant wipes amounts to $200,000 in equipment. And very important for our schools at this time, as you can appreciate. This is Jackie Ralph, for those of you who don't know. And the comment that I have that goes with the slide for Jackie Ralph comes from a much lengthier write-up that was submitted by Reen Langen. Reen, my apologies to Reen, as I've had to condense some of her writing for this presentation. Reen says, Jackie Ralph is a blurry flurry of activity for our students and staff throughout Grey Bruce and supports amazing Tier 1 work for all school boards and community partners. Whether she is doing stress busters for secondary students pre-exams, delivering Cinnabons as one of her many fundraising activities, doing a grand pivot to virtual sessions to support students and schools with her Wellness Wednesday pre-recorded talks by Chatty Jackie, or taking her fan club puppet show virtually on the road to a school or a community group, she seems to be everywhere. Jackie most recently had masterminded funding from many different sources to bring the Classroom Champions program to many of our elementary schools. In the Classroom Champions program, Olympians and Para-Olympians present 8 classroom sessions on building resiliency, wellness, and social emotional skills for life. Jackie always has a project plan, event, or is brainstorming about something. One of her favorite events is Belle's Let's Talk. Jackie is a leader of the Parade of Mental Health and Wellbeing in Grey Bruce, bringing her warmth, kindness, and compassion to everyone she meets along the way. Constable Stacy Gordon of Saugeen Shores Police Service has organized a positive ticketing campaign to recognize students who are doing good deeds or following the law by wearing a bike helmet, for example. Students will be rewarded with a positive ticket that can be redeemed for French fries at Wismar House Restaurant or a free ice cream from Fun in the Sun. In an interview, Constable Gordon indicated this positive ticketing campaign is an excellent way for our officers to build relationships with youth in the area, as well as promote local businesses. And I'm just going to speak to this a little bit, and then I'm going to turn things over to Matt. So the South Bruce Peninsula ATV Club donated $500 to BPDS for their breakfast club, but they didn't stop there. They also donated $500 to Peninsula Shores District School, Hepworth Community School, Amabel Sauble Community School, Keppel Sarawak Elementary School, and Hillcrest Elementary School. So each of those schools received $500 toward their breakfast club program. And I'm going to turn things over to Matt to speak to this slide and the next 2 slides.
Hey, I wanted to thank Ms. Lowers for inviting me to join you. It's been an eventful night, and what a report of generosity from so many corners of the board. It's pretty exciting. So Chair Thompson and trustees and student trustees and senators and Director Wilder, thank you for letting me come and talk about a little bit more about the generosity piece. We have 2 very active parents in our Breakfast Club program, Ms. Kim McKellar and Mrs. Nicole Gamble. And they came to me and said, we have some statistics for you. And we have incredible support through the Ontario Student Nutrition Program. We have great support through Bev Gateman and lots of opportunities for food to come into the school. But when you do the calculations, it's somewhat staggering. We figured it with the packaging, unfortunately, that you have to use during COVID times. We calculated it's about $194 per day or $1,000 a week to provide a school-wide breakfast program with universal access and equity for all kids. And when you say that in those terms, you realize at the time, with about 30 weeks left in school, that you're talking about $30,000. And we did have approximately $7,000 through the Ontario Student Nutrition Program, which when you hear that, you say that's a lot of money. And I know that Trustee Atkinson spoke earlier about the closeness of the breakfast program to her heart. And it is also when provided universally to kids who are hungry after being on the bus or walking to school, it starts to you realize how much money it is. So they said to me, Ms. McKellar and Ms. Gamble said, we just need to make this happen. So they put some things into the paper, which is up here. It is the Bruce Peninsula Press. They put something out on Facebook, and the huge outpouring of generosity, like all of our communities in Grey Bruce, it just flooded in. And you'll see from the slide that we received north of $23,000. We had approximately $7,000. And we were fortunate enough to secure throughout the course of the year. During the time where we were in lockdown, we provided some gift certificates to families to get, to maybe be at the grocery store at Foodland and buy those apples or buy the granola bars or the things they might not normally be able to afford. So it's a real celebration tonight of the kindness and the local giving of our community members. And not just one group, but a broad spectrum of our community, right from our ATV club on the peninsula, right through to local seniors and community members. So I just wanted to join Ms. Lowers in one more example of incredible generosity in our board. So it was a pleasure to share that with you.
Thanks, Matt. Okay. And they also, through their bottle program, Matt, you also had a donation through that as well.
Yeah, so Tim Hayes is a local gentleman who is part of the bottle collection, and often people will leave the bottles outside and not ask for any money, or he will just turn around and donate back to the school. And in that instance, Tim knew that a lot of kids wouldn't have the supplies that they needed because we can't share the same way we normally would. When we aren't in a pandemic, he thought it was important for every student to have a bin with everything they needed. And that's just the type of generosity we're seeing, and local generosity with people thinking about local kids to help. So it's another great example of the kindness of the community.
Thanks, Mr. Prickett.
No problem. And I'm sorry I'm wearing my BPDS hat. I'm feeling patriotic, but I'm also struggling with incredibly bad COVID hair, so I apologize for that.
It looks very supportive of your school. Good
yes.
Spirit, Mr.
And it covers up the bad COVID hair. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to present our little corner of the world, which is a pretty special place.
And thank you for joining us. So just in summation, as you saw from tonight's presentation, Blue Water District School Board schools and students are incredibly fortunate to be supported by such a generous community group and such generous individuals. And as it's been said many times tonight, this is just a very small smattering of some of the amazing generosity that we do receive. So we're very, very fortunate.
Thank you very much. Do trustees have any questions or comments? Trustee Morgan.
Just a comment. It's extremely humbling when you see and hear about how generous people are and how much they care about the kids. That's all I have to say. It's wonderful. Thanks.
Director Wilder.
Wendy summed it up really nicely, but I have to express huge thanks on behalf of all of us too to the community sponsors. It's just phenomenal how people just continue to give and give and give, even despite COVID times like other years too. It's just, we have such a generous community that we live in, and we are just very, very fortunate. Matt, I was thinking that maybe you could have a volunteer come in and cut your hair as a community generosity move, but
Well, you've known me long enough that that's happened many times through Cops for Cancer and other things. Eventually, it will come off, including the facial hair.
And thanks to Lauren, Wendy, and Matt for their participation and presentation this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Trustee Atkinson.
I just want to say congratulations on that huge donation to your breakfast programs. I know only too well, if it wasn't for generous people in our communities, that we really would have struggled this year with all the COVID protocols and the change in our models of delivery, that it wouldn't have happened without the generous people. And I know that only too well. So kudos to your communities, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I too have been very struck by this year in particular with COVID. I think people have been more than generous to fill the gaps and needs that we are aware of in our communities. I'm sure that all of our local donations have been thanked locally. I don't know if there's a way to make to thank them more broadly, but we are very blessed to have people that care so much for our students, whether they have students in the school or are just community members that support. So thank you very much. It's an excellent presentation.
You're very welcome.
It was moved by Trustee McComb and seconded by Trustee Morgan that the Blue Water District School Board receive the school up. No, I'm on the wrong thing. Where am I? Oh, I have it the wrong here, but anyway, that we our school donation report for information generosity. All in favor? Thank you very much. That's carried. We're moved on to school update. And I would like to invite Superintendent of Education Cheryl Elliott to speak to our report. And I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the Blue Water District School Board receive the school update report for information. I see Trustee Atkinson and seconded by Trustee Boyd-John. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to bring you this school update as we head into the final months. It's hard to believe I'm saying that. Of this school year, and we begin our preparations for the 2021-2022 school year. The first item that I would like to speak to you briefly about is asymptomatic testing. And we had our first ministry mandated asymptomatic testing clinic for COVID-19 at Peninsula Shore School on March 11th. 5 schools were invited, and the way it worked was that each school was provided with a 1-hour time slot, so that would reduce any interaction between school communities. 15 rapid tests were completed and all were negative. Our second asymptomatic testing clinic will occur this Thursday evening at Grey Highlands. There are 6 schools invited in a similar manner with time slots for this clinic on Thursday evening. And after that clinic, there will be an additional 7 more clinics occurring between after Thursday and June 3rd of this year. Does anyone have any questions for me about asymptomatic testing?
Do trustees have any questions? I have one if I don't see any. I'm wondering if somebody that perhaps was in the northern Bruce or a family of schools that could have gone to the Peninsula Shores but weren't available that night, can they go to a different clinic, or do
yes,
they
are
need to be
allowing
cohorted
walk-ins to the clinics. There's a few reasons for that. One is that we plan these clinics in advance with good reason, but you never quite know when we might have an outbreak or, a particular reason for people to feel that they would need the asymptomatic testing. So there is an opportunity for walk-ins, but also we would have an opportunity to work with our own public health unit if we felt the need to provide an additional clinic if there was an outbreak or a rise in cases in a certain part of our area.
Thank you. Student Trustee Wall?
So sorry if I missed this, but when is it recommended that someone go and get the testing when they don't have a symptom?
Well, that's a really good question, Trustee Wall. That would depend on your opinion. I know our local health unit does not feel that asymptomatic testing is necessary. The ministry has mandated asymptomatic testing. They believe that it's providing an additional layer of protection throughout the province to be screening and scanning for COVID-19 cases. So I think in our area where up until the last week, we've been having a very positive environment around COVID-19. It does seem to be really not necessary, but province-wide, I think you'll see if you're watching the news, it's an entirely different situation around the province, and the ministry is always making decisions with the entire province in mind.
Trustee Boyd-John?
I just wanted to confirm that the clinics are voluntary and the students can make a decision whether they want to participate or not.
Yes, through the chair, all of the testing is voluntary and consent is required. So we sent letters home to staff can participate as well, and to families, that it is voluntary with their schools timed for them to arrive, and it is entirely voluntary.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure to pass on to Superintendent Tang, who's going to give you an update tonight as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My update is about staffing. So at this time, the Ministry of Education has told boards to plan for a normal year next year. So we are currently planning that the students in the remote school would return to their bricks and mortar schools for staffing purposes at this time. And I'm being very, very careful to say at this time, meaning tonight at 8:31, because we are also aware that the ministry would like us to have the capacity to change that plan should our circumstances change. So we are proceeding now with our normal staffing processes on anticipation of students returning to schools next year. Are there any questions? It's very early in the process for us.
Thank you. Trustees have any questions? Trustee Boyd-John?
Is there any word that the online school will continue to be an option for students, or it's going to be completely brick and mortar as far as we know?
At this time, it's going to be a normal school, so that's our current plan. As you're aware from Mr. Lefebvre's other presentations, we do have for secondary schools, or secondary students, some online learning opportunities through the ELO or Online Learning Consortium. But that would not be a full program for someone.
Director Wilder, would you like to speak?
Yes, that's a very good question, and one which we've been wondering about ourselves. As you know, Chair Thompson and myself participate in calls with the ministry led by Minister Lecce, and that is a question that chairs of boards have been asking. What is September to look like? And so I know that some boards are coming out and making declarations about what it looks like, but we've been told that we should know more from the ministry by mid-April. But they are saying, as Superintendent Tang had said, they are saying plan for a regular year. We still have a sense that there will be some health and safety protocols required. We are hearing that perhaps we'll have to continue. These are just things we're hearing, continue with the cohorting, for example, and even perhaps quadmester approach for the first semester anyway. But as Superintendent Tang said, that's just, we're waiting to hear. I think that we're in a very favorable position here. So returning face-to-face is a preferred option, and I think it's a preferred option for a lot of reasons for our children, and we want to offer that. But I have a sense that we will have to be looking at remote learning for some instances. For us, running the full remote learning school has been well done, but it's been a lot of work. And so our thinking is hopefully maybe the face-to-face would be the option for most. And then in those cases where we need to, there would be some other kind of remote learning option available. We hope that the ministry comes forward soon to give us that clarity. But despite that, this is what we're thinking right now.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from trustees? I see none. Thank you very much, Superintendent Tang, and I assume there's another presentation for us.
Hi there. It's yes, I have another update to bring to you this evening. Thank you. So from the Learning Services program side, just a couple updates to bring forward tonight. We did speak a little bit with you earlier around some of our math professional learning that's been going on, and you may recall us talking a little bit about de-streamed mathematics and the new grade 9 math curriculum that is going to be coming out for next school year. We are going to come back to you with a further presentation at an upcoming board meeting around mathematics and de-streaming. But I also just wanted to let you know that during some of our conversations and some of our sessions with the ministry, we were provided an opportunity to ask questions or provide feedback. And so we did provide some questions and feedback as supported by Trustee Lutz had shared some comments, and Trustee Thompson had shared some comments. And so I have forwarded that on, and I haven't heard anything back yet, but we are hopeful that we might hear in time that when we bring the presentation forward, we can include any further comments or follow-up from the ministry at that time. So we'll look forward to that report. And the second thing I wanted to update you on that you may have been hearing about is the OSSLT, which is the secondary literacy test, the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. And in Blue Water, we've had a lot of discussion around this over the past week or so. We have decided to move ahead with providing the opportunity for our students to participate in the OSSLT. We put a lot of thinking into this, and we feel that it is a field test this year. And so therefore it is has a different sort of level of weight, let's say, than a regular year. The students can participate in the field test, and if they're successful, then that's great, and they can use this to go towards their graduation requirement. This will help them complete their graduation requirement. And if they're not successful, they're not penalized in any way for attempting to write the test. We're cognizant that, of course, the OSSLT requirement for graduation is waived this year for graduating students. But our students typically you write the test in grade 10. So as of right now, this graduation requirement has not been waived for the grade 10 students or the grade 11 students. So our current grade 10 and 11 cohorts at this time do need to meet this requirement. So we wanted to give them the opportunity to do that. The window for testing has also been broadened, and the window is from March 23rd until June 4th. So that allows schools flexibility in planning. So it's not the same pressure when everybody would have to write on one day or over a couple of days. Schools can plan and work together to make sure that they have good supports in place for students and that they have a well-timed plan in their schools. So that also was something that we want to take into account. The test itself is 2 hours, but can be broken into 1 hour sittings as well. So there is some flexibility built in there. And our schools felt that that they were able to accommodate this, meet the needs, and plan for this, and help students to be successful. So we are planning to move ahead, and some of our schools have participated this week already. And there is a practice. So you do participate in a practice session. The students get to try logging in. They get to go through a practice so that they know what to expect. And some of our schools have done that this week already, and will continue to do that moving forward. And that's my update from Learning Services Program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do trustees have questions? Trustee Lutz.
Will students in the online school who would be in the grades for doing the literacy test, will they have the opportunity to do it as well? Because I've heard from other boards that online students won't. So will our students doing online learning have the opportunity to do it? Because if not, there's a disequity component there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Trustee Lutz. And we did talk about this in terms of the equity. Students enrolled in the remote school and working from home cannot participate in the test. It's a logistical piece around the actual software and the ministry program that's being used to complete the test online. So it isn't an option. And we did talk a lot about this in terms of the equity piece. And we talked with our schools about are we able then to accommodate our remote school students next year for sure, with the opportunity to write the test, because we know that's going to be added students next year into our into the numbers that we need to provide the opportunity to. And our schools felt that yes, we would be able to have the space and have the time to provide that opportunity to the students, to the remote school students.
Trustee Lutz, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, if that's okay.
Sure.
Would it be, I don't know how the literacy test works, so excuse my ignorance, but would it be possible to set up a specific time and place? I realize it would mean coming to a physical building, but to give our remote students a chance to participate, like maybe that's been talked about, and I don't know, but just to allow an opportunity for them.
Yeah, thanks again for that question. We did talk about that and what that might look like. Of course, we have to take into account cohorting and health and safety protocols. And we know that the cohorting piece is a bit of a challenge logistically to figure out by, for example, inviting remote students either in to schools and or a location where you're going to bring those students together. Many have chosen to be home, you know, for various reasons, health related, whether it's their own health, for example, or family members that with compromised health. So of course, bringing all of them together in a space can be challenging. So we did talk about it. We just felt that to maintain our high level of protocols and health and safety measures that we've had in place, that maybe wasn't the best option, and that we would focus on providing that support next year to those students.
Trustees have any other questions? I see none. Thank you very much, Superintendent Penner-Lipset.
Thank you.
Oh, and I might be the last one for this evening, I believe. in terms of updates from the superintendents. Yes.
Super. Thank you very much. It was moved by Trustee Atkinson and seconded by Trustee Boyd-John that the Blue Water District School Board receive the school update report for information. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. And that takes us down to communications and correspondence. We have no correspondence that's been received. And I just have one item in regard to the thank you letter that you received earlier. I would like to seek agreement from all of you that we send a thank you letter, but to all staff on behalf of the Board of Trustees. If the trustees agree, a draft of the letter will be sent to you for your review prior to it being sent. Can I have agreement in a show of hands, or if anyone has a comment that they'd like to make? Trustee Dawson, a comment or a show of hand?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Okay, so can I have a show of hands? That's great. Thank you very much, everyone. Any communications or announcements from student trustees, staff, OPSPA? I don't see any. Any director, trustee, conferences, conventions? I see none.
No.
And the trustee calendar of events, that's there always for you to refer to. And that takes us to our adjournment. Could I have a mover that the Blue Water District School Board adjourn at 8:48 p.m. I see Trustee Dawson, a seconder, Trustee McComb, and all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Stay well. Good night.
Thanks, Chair Thompson. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.